Her earliest memories were filled with the warmth of her parents' love and the gentle rhythm of small-town life. Elena grew up in a quaint village, tucked between rolling green hills and a sparkling river that curved gracefully through the valley. The cobblestone streets were lined with modest homes, their gardens a patchwork of flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Children ran freely, laughter echoing through the town square, and neighbors greeted each other with familiarity and care. To Elena, this town was more than home. It was a place where kindness was currency, and faith shaped every aspect of life. Her father, a carpenter, had hands that told the story of a lifetime of labor, rough, calloused, yet capable of incredible tenderness. He taught Elena how to carve small wooden toys, how to sand them carefully, and how to take pride in even the smallest task. He believed that diligence and patience were not just virtues for work, but for life itself. Her mother, meanwhile, tended the garden behind their small house, her hands weaving through soil and sunlight. She taught Elena to notice the little miracles in everyday life, a bloom emerging after the rain, the melody of birdsong at dawn, the fragrance of fresh herbs plucked with care. Evenings were a sacred time. The family would gather around a small wooden table, the warm glow of candlelight reflecting off the walls. They spoke of their day, their successes and missteps, and most importantly, they prayed. Elena's parents instilled in her a deep sense of gratitude, humility, and faith in God's plan. They taught her that life would not always be easy, but that kindness, patience, and trust in a higher power would provide guidance through even the darkest moments. Elena was curious and observant, always asking questions about the world around her. Her father would answer with patience, turning lessons about carpentry into teachings about integrity and perseverance. Her mother would guide her hands in the soil, explaining that growth takes time, care, and faith. In these simple acts, Elena began to understand the principles that would guide her through her entire life: resilience, compassion, and unwavering hope. She also formed friendships with the other children in the village, playing by the river, racing through the fields, and exploring the woods at the edge of town. These carefree moments brought her joy, but she never lost sight of the values her parents had imparted. Life, she realized even as a child, was a mixture of beauty and responsibility. Her parents' guidance shaped not only her actions but her inner world, giving her a foundation of love, faith, and discipline that would sustain her long after she had to leave the comfort of her childhood. Little did Elena know, this seemingly idyllic childhood would soon be shattered, and the lessons she learned from her parents would become the lifeline she would cling to in the years of loss and hardship that lay ahead. Yet even in the shadow of that unknown future, she felt a quiet sense of security in the knowledge that faith and love were the most enduring treasures one could possess, a truth that would carry her through trials beyond imagination and guide her to the life she was yet to discover. Morning the world changed for Elena began like any other. Sunlight spilled softly across her small bedroom, illuminating the quilt her mother had stitched by hand and the wooden toys her father had carefully carved. Birds chirped outside the window, and the town slowly came to life with the clatter of carts and greetings between neighbors. But as she hurried down the stairs for breakfast, Elena sensed a strange silence in the house, a silence that immediately unsettled her. Her parents were gone. It was the neighbors who delivered the dreadful news. A sudden accident on the main road had claimed the lives of both her father and mother. Words faltered and fell flat as Elena tried to process the reality. One moment she was standing in the doorway of her warm, loving home. The next, she was enveloped in a cold, incomprehensible emptiness. The small, familiar world she had known, her parents' voices, their laughter, the gentle touch of their hands, had been ripped away. The days that followed were a blur of grief, disbelief, and the mechanical motions of survival. The neighbors were kind, offering food, comfort, and sympathy, but their gestures, though heartfelt, could not replace the warmth of her parents. Elena wandered through the silent house, touching the objects her parents had left behind: the worn kitchen table, the garden tools leaning neatly against the shed, her father's apron hanging by the door. Each item reminded her of what she had lost, and each memory struck like a small dagger to the heart. With the inheritance of a modest house and some savings came the heavy weight of responsibility. At 16, Elena suddenly became the sole guardian of her own life, forced to navigate the world without guidance. She took on small jobs to keep the household running, delivering bread from the bakery, helping neighbors with chores, and learning to manage money carefully. The work was exhausting, both physically and emotionally, but she knew she could not falter. She whispered prayers daily, seeking strength from the faith her parents had instilled in her, clinging to the belief that God had a plan even when life seemed unbearably cruel. Night after night, she knelt by her bed, tears flowing freely, asking for courage and guidance. Though the grief was relentless, a small ember of resilience glimmered within her. She began to understand that life would not always be easy and that survival required more than endurance. It demanded hope, determination, and unwavering faith. She carried her parents' lessons in her heart, repeating their words silently. Kindness, patience, and trust in God will see you through. Though the world seemed darker, Elena's spirit refused to break. She learned to cook simple meals, mend her clothes, and care for the little home that had once been filled with love and laughter. It was a lonely existence, but it marked the beginning of her transformation. The tragedy that had stolen her family became the crucible in which her resilience and faith were forged, preparing her for the challenges and joys that lay ahead. Little did she know, the heartbreak of her first love and the challenges of adulthood would soon follow, testing her spirit in ways she had never imagined. But even in this sorrow, a quiet, steadfast hope persisted, a whisper that life, though fragile, still held the possibility of purpose, love, and redemption. The loss of her parents had thrust Elena into a world far beyond her years, and yet she faced it with quiet determination. She rose early each morning, tending to the small household chores her parents had once managed. The garden required careful attention, the floors needed scrubbing, and the kitchen demanded meals that were both simple and sustaining. At 16, she quickly learned that survival was not a matter of luck, but of diligence, patience, and persistence. Each task, no matter how small, became a testament to her resilience and the values instilled by her parents. To supplement the modest inheritance left behind, Elena sought work wherever she could find it. Her first job was delivering bread from the bakery, balancing heavy baskets along the uneven cobblestones. The baker, a kindly woman named Agnes, noticed Elena's quiet determination and offered her a position cleaning the shop after hours. It was exhausting, but Elena approached the work with unwavering dedication. She learned to rise before dawn, to move quickly and efficiently, and to find pride in her accomplishments, no matter how small. Soon, Elena's skill with her hands led her to sewing. She became an apprentice to a seamstress in town, learning the intricate art of tailoring, mending, and embroidery. The work demanded focus and patience, and Elena found herself lost in the rhythm of needle and thread. Each stitch was more than a practical skill. It was a meditation, a way to quiet her grief and channel her energy into something tangible and beautiful. The small room she rented above the bakery became her sanctuary, filled with fabric, patterns, and the faint scent of lavender her mother had once loved. Here, she prayed, wrote in her journal, and imagined a life beyond mere survival, one built on faith, kindness, and self-reliance. Her days were long and often lonely. Friends from childhood had moved on or were absorbed in their own lives, leaving Elena to navigate adolescence and early adulthood largely on her own. Yet, through her solitude, she discovered a deeper connection to her faith. Prayer became both refuge and guide, offering clarity in moments of doubt and strength in times of weariness. She began to understand that her parents' teachings were not just rules to follow, but a foundation upon which she could rebuild her life. Brick by brick, stitch by stitch, despite the challenges, Elena never lost her gentleness or her sense of compassion. She offered help to neighbors struggling with illness, guided children with their schoolwork, and shared small comforts where she could. In every act of kindness, she found a quiet sense of purpose. She understood that her life, though marked by loss, could still be meaningful and impactful. And while she could not yet imagine it, the next chapter of her life, one filled with love, friendship, and profound trials, was slowly beginning to take shape. Through the rhythm of work, prayer, and small acts of service, Elena was learning the first true lessons of adulthood, that resilience is born in hardship, that faith can illuminate even the darkest days, and that hope, though fragile, can guide one forward, even when the path is uncertain. In her early 20s, Elena's life, though full of purpose and quiet achievement, was touched by a longing she had never known before, the desire for companionship and love. It was during one warm spring morning, with sunlight streaming through the bakery window, that she met Marcus. He was visiting the town on business, and his presence immediately drew attention. Handsome, confident, and seemingly attentive, Marcus had a way of speaking that made each person feel uniquely heard. When he smiled at Elena across the bustling street, she felt an unexpected warmth, a flutter in her chest that both surprised and delighted her. Their first conversations were simple, yet charged with curiosity. Marcus asked about her life, her work, and her dreams. Elena, initially reserved, found herself opening up in ways she had not dared for years. She spoke of her parents, her struggles, and her faith, honestly, without embellishment. Marcus listened, nodded, and shared his own experiences, his words weaving a sense of shared understanding between them. Over the following weeks, their friendship deepened. They walked along the river, talked under the shade of old oaks, and shared laughter that felt like sunlight breaking through the shadow of her past hardships. For the first time in years, Elena allowed herself to dream. She imagined a home filled with warmth, laughter, and shared faith, a life where love would stand beside her resilience. Marcus spoke of plans, ambitions, and a future that seemed both promising and exhilarating. In his presence, the loneliness that had shadowed her since her parents' death seemed to fade. The world appeared brighter, and hope, once cautious and tentative, surged through her like a gentle river. But happiness, as Elena would soon learn, can be fragile. Marcus's ambitions were not tethered to the small town or to the values Elena held dear. As spring gave way to summer, he received an opportunity in a distant city, an offer he could not refuse. The promise of letters and visits, which at first seemed comforting, quickly proved empty. He left, leaving Elena with a heart heavy with sorrow and questions she could not immediately answer. Why had life allowed this brief joy only to take it away so swiftly? Elena's heartbreak was profound, shaking the foundations of the hope she had begun to rebuild. Nights were filled with tears and prayers, moments of silent questioning of God's plan. Yet, even in this despair, she clung to the lessons her parents had instilled: resilience, faith, and trust in God's guidance. She refused to allow betrayal to harden her heart. Instead, she focused on the life she could shape, the skills she had learned, and the small ways she could serve others. Though Marcus's departure left a painful void, it also ignited a quiet strength within Elena. She began to see that love, while beautiful, was not the only source of fulfillment. Faith, purpose, and service could sustain the spirit even when human hearts faltered, and in the quiet corners of her daily life, a whisper of hope persisted, hinting that true love, steady, kind, and enduring, might one day find her if she remained patient and faithful. After Marcus left, Elena found herself enveloped in a silence that was both heavy and revealing. The streets of her small town, once filled with the warm sounds of community and occasional laughter, now felt vast and empty. Her heart ached for the companionship she had briefly known, but her mind and spirit turned inward, seeking the strength that had carried her through the loss of her parents. Nights were the hardest. The stillness of her small room above the bakery amplified the absence she felt, leaving her alone with memories and unspoken questions. Yet, it was in this solitude that Elena's faith grew stronger. She returned to the quiet rituals her parents had taught her, kneeling by her bedside each night, praying for guidance, and meditating on the lessons of compassion, resilience, and trust in God's plan. Each prayer became a lifeline, a steady reminder that she was not truly alone, even when the world seemed to have turned its back on her. She began journaling, pouring out her thoughts, fears, and small victories. Writing became a form of reflection and release, allowing her to process grief, heartbreak, and the small joys that punctuated her days. Elena's days were no longer defined by the pursuit of romantic love, but by acts of service and the cultivation of her talents. She offered to help elderly neighbors carry firewood, assisted mothers with household chores, and tutored children in reading and arithmetic. Each small act reminded her of the interconnectedness of life, that even in loneliness she could make a meaningful difference. The warmth of gratitude in others' eyes filled spaces in her heart that sorrow had once occupied. Her work as a seamstress deepened during this period. She found solace in the rhythm of her craft, measuring, cutting, stitching, and finishing each piece with care. Each garment she completed became a small testament to patience, precision, and dedication. Through her work, she not only provided for herself, but also found a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that her contributions, however modest, had value and impact. Elena also began noticing the beauty in the world around her in ways she had not before. The sunlight filtering through the leaves on her morning walks, the laughter of children playing by the river, and the scent of fresh-baked bread drifting from the bakery all became reminders that life, even in its trials, held countless blessings. Faith, she realized, was not only about prayer but also about seeing God's hand in every small detail, embracing hope even when circumstances seemed bleak. In this quiet period of growth and reflection, Elena unknowingly prepared herself for the next chapter of her life, a chapter that would bring companionship grounded in understanding, shared values, and mutual respect. Her heart, though tender and scarred, remained open, ready to recognize and nurture the kind of love that would honor her faith and the lessons of her past. And so, while loneliness lingered, it became a crucible for resilience, a space in which hope and trust were quietly, steadily renewed. It was on a rain-slicked afternoon that Elena's life, already shaped by loss and quiet perseverance, encountered a spark of unexpected connection. The clouds hung low over the town, and raindrops tapped gently against the windows of the bakery where Elena had been delivering fresh bread to a neighbor. As she navigated the slippery streets with a basket balanced carefully in her hands, she felt a sudden jolt and nearly slipped on the wet cobblestones. A firm yet gentle hand steadied her. "Are you all right?" a calm voice asked. Elena looked up and found herself gazing into the kind eyes of a man whose presence seemed to radiate patience and understanding. His name was Daniel, and though a visitor to the town, he carried an ease in his manner that immediately set her at ease. There was no rush in his movements, no assumption in his concern, only quiet attentiveness. Elena, startled yet grateful, nodded. Her heartbeat quickened, not only by the surprise, but by the sense of being truly seen and acknowledged. They walked a few steps together under the shared shelter of a large oak tree, exchanging polite conversation at first. Daniel asked about her day, her work, and the little town she called home. Elena, who had grown accustomed to speaking little of her personal struggles, found herself telling him about the bakery, her seamstress work, and the joy she found in helping others. Daniel listened, genuinely interested, his responses measured and thoughtful. He shared glimpses of his own life, his travels, the loneliness that sometimes accompanied them, and his admiration for people who dedicated themselves to service. By the end of their brief encounter, Elena felt an unfamiliar warmth in her chest, a quiet reassurance that perhaps life still held gentle surprises. She returned to her work with a subtle smile, reflecting on the calm sincerity of Daniel's presence. Over the following weeks, chance encounters became slightly more frequent. A nod at the marketplace, a shared conversation while delivering bread, small exchanges that built familiarity and trust without forcing intimacy. In Daniel, Elena discovered a mirror of her own values, patience, quiet strength, and kindness, and she found herself gradually opening her heart again, cautiously but with growing curiosity. Even as rain continued to fall intermittently over the town, the memory of that first encounter lingered in Elena's mind. She realized that connection, true and steady, could appear quietly, almost imperceptibly, and yet leave a profound impact. Her heart, tempered by past grief and heartbreak, was beginning to recognize the promise of a companion whose presence would not only bring comfort, but also inspire growth and shared purpose. The encounter with Daniel, simple as it seemed, planted the first seeds of a relationship that would grow steadily, nurtured by patience, shared values, and the quiet, unwavering influence of faith. And though Elena could not yet know it, this meeting marked the turning point, a bridge from solitude and healing toward trust, understanding, and the slow, deliberate blossoming of love that would reshape the course of her life. In the weeks that followed their first encounter, Elena and Daniel's paths seemed to cross more often, though never by deliberate design. At first, their interactions were brief, casual exchanges in the marketplace or near the bakery, polite and courteous but tinged with a subtle curiosity. Yet, as time passed, those small moments began to develop into conversations of depth and meaning. Daniel's presence was steady and unhurried, a stark contrast to the whirlwind emotions Elena had experienced with Marcus. His kindness was neither flamboyant nor overwhelming. It was quiet, deliberate, and deeply respectful of her pace. Elena found herself looking forward to these chance meetings, feeling a rare sense of ease and openness she had not allowed herself for years. Slowly, she began to share pieces of her story, her parents' passing, the heartbreak with Marcus, and the struggles of building a life on her own. Daniel listened with genuine attentiveness, never interrupting or rushing her, his responses thoughtful and measured. He shared his own experiences, too. Moments of loneliness during his travels and reflections on the fleeting nature of life, the importance of kindness, and the ways in which faith guided his actions. Through these exchanges, a quiet trust blossomed, grounded in mutual respect and shared values. Their friendship grew in tandem with Elena's sense of hope. She discovered in Daniel a companion who appreciated not only her resilience, but also her vulnerability. He encouraged her, subtly but consistently, to continue pursuing her dreams and serving her community, acknowledging the weight of responsibility she bore, yet never diminishing her accomplishments. For his part, Daniel seemed to draw strength from Elena's unwavering faith and gentle wisdom, learning to slow his pace and reflect more deeply on the meaning of life, service, and love. Evenings became a time of reflection for Elena as she replayed the day's encounters in her mind. She marveled at how a relationship could develop slowly, without urgency, yet feel increasingly significant. The bond she shared with Daniel was not born of grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but of small, consistent acts of attention, patience, and understanding, a stark contrast to the fleeting passion of her past heartbreak. As the seasons shifted, their friendship deepened naturally. Walks by the river became longer. Conversations stretched into the soft light of dusk, and their trust in one another solidified. Elena felt her heart opening again, cautiously yet fully aware of the lessons of her past. She recognized that true connection was built not on haste or expectation, but on respect, shared values, and the willingness to support and understand one another. This period of friendship set the foundation for what was to come, a love grounded not in urgency or infatuation, but in patience, mutual respect, and spiritual alignment. The slow, deliberate growth of trust and understanding between Elena and Daniel foreshadowed the deeper emotional and spiritual bond that would shape the next chapters of her life, preparing her heart for joy, partnership, and shared purpose. Winter arrived with a quiet severity, blanketing the town in frost and snow. The river slowed to a sluggish trickle beneath sheets of ice, and the once vibrant fields were muted under the weight of winter's chill. For many residents, this season brought hardships. Illnesses spread quickly in the cold, heating wood and food were scarce for struggling families, and isolation settled over the elderly and vulnerable. For Elena, this season was another test of her resilience and commitment to service. Each day, she rose before dawn, gathering firewood from her small garden and neighboring lots, carrying it through icy streets to those who could not manage the task themselves. She delivered simple meals, checked on children whose parents were overworked, and offered a listening ear to those burdened by illness or loneliness. Though her own heart bore the quiet ache of past loss and longing, she never allowed it to overshadow the needs of others. In every small act of care, she discovered a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet reminder that the human spirit could be strengthened by compassion and service. Daniel became an important presence during this season, offering practical assistance and steady encouragement. He helped Elena carry supplies through snow-laden streets, accompanied her when visiting neighbors, and provided emotional support when exhaustion or doubt crept into her resolve. Though he could not shoulder her responsibilities entirely, his presence lent her a profound sense of companionship, reinforcing the trust and connection they had slowly nurtured over the past months. Their shared efforts strengthened not only their bond but also the community itself, as neighbors observed their dedication and were inspired to contribute however they could. Amid the physical labor and emotional weight of the season, Elena found solace in the familiar rituals of prayer and reflection. Each night she knelt beside her bed, giving thanks for small victories and seeking guidance for the challenges ahead. The cold, long nights became moments of introspection, reinforcing the lessons of patience, faith, and resilience her parents had instilled. She also used this time to mentor Clara and other young girls in the town, offering instruction in sewing, reading, and life skills, ensuring that knowledge, hope, and kindness would continue to ripple outward even in the harshest months. Though winter was harsh and the work demanding, Elena's heart grew stronger, more steadfast. Her faith, patience, and acts of service became intertwined, each reinforcing the other. Through adversity, she learned that hardship need not diminish the spirit. Rather, it could refine it, transforming sorrow into compassion and struggle into strength. And as snow continued to fall gently over the rooftops, Elena realized that even in the coldest, darkest months, light could persist in acts of kindness, in faithful hearts, and in the quiet companionship of those who walk beside us. This season of challenge and service not only solidified Elena's role in the town, but also deepened the bond between her and Daniel. Their shared purpose and mutual respect laid the foundation for the greater trials and triumphs that awaited, preparing Elena for the next chapter of growth, mentorship, and the unfolding promise of love and community. As winter's grip loosened and spring approached, Elena's focus expanded beyond her own survival and service. Among the town's residents, she noticed a young girl named Clara, who carried herself with quiet determination despite the heavy weight of loss. Clara, only 16, had recently lost both parents and was left to care for her younger siblings. In her, Elena recognized herself, a reflection of her younger struggles and the resilience that had been forged in the fires of hardship. Without hesitation, Elena took Clara under her wing, determined to provide guidance, support, and hope. Elena's small tailoring shop became a sanctuary not only for Clara, but for several young women in the community. There, amidst the hum of sewing machines and the rich scent of fabric, she taught practical skills: how to sew, mend, and create garments that could provide income or be used to serve others. But her lessons went far beyond the technical. She imparted wisdom about patience, perseverance, and faith. Each stitch became a metaphor for life. Each completed project a reminder that careful effort and dedication could transform raw materials into something meaningful and beautiful. Clara thrived under Elena's mentorship. The young girl's confidence grew as she learned to navigate challenges, support her siblings, and contribute to the community. Elena taught her how to balance work, prayer, and service, emphasizing that strength came not from avoiding difficulty, but from meeting it with courage and integrity. Through this guidance, Clara began to understand that even in the face of loss, it was possible to create a life filled with purpose, hope, and compassion. Daniel watched Elena's mentorship with quiet admiration. He observed the patience, kindness, and wisdom she offered, recognizing the depth of her character and the unwavering commitment she brought to those around her. Her influence extended beyond skill building. She instilled confidence, resilience, and faith, shaping the lives of young women who would one day carry these lessons forward. The partnership between Elena and Daniel, though still evolving romantically, was strengthened by shared respect for service and the understanding that their combined efforts could uplift the entire community. The act of mentoring also deepened Elena's own growth. She reflected on her journey, from the grief of losing her parents to the heartbreak of her first love, and recognized that each hardship had prepared her to guide others. She understood the importance of patience, empathy, and the quiet power of consistent support. Every success Clara achieved, every smile of gratitude from the young women, reinforced Elena's belief that service and mentorship were integral to a life lived with faith and purpose. As spring progressed, the shop became more than a workplace. It was a haven of hope. Young women learned not only the craft of sewing, but the value of resilience, compassion, and trust. Elena's story, once marked by personal loss and heartbreak, now served as a living example of transformation through faith and action. And in the quiet moments, she knew that these efforts were preparing her heart for the next stage of life, a chapter where love, partnership, and shared purpose would intertwine, leading to growth, joy, and fulfillment for herself and those around her. The town itself had transformed alongside Elena's journey. The shop became a center not only for craft and skill, but also for community gatherings, celebrations, and mentorship programs. Young women carried forward her teachings into their families, spreading lessons of resilience, kindness, and faith. The ripples of Elena's influence extended beyond immediate walls, creating a legacy that would endure for generations. In quiet moments, as she watched the sun set over the rooftops, Daniel beside her, and the laughter of children drifting through the streets, Elena felt a profound sense of peace. Her life, marked once by grief and uncertainty, had blossomed into a story of purpose, love, and enduring faith. Through service, mentorship, and the quiet nurturing of hope, she had built a life that not only healed her own heart, but strengthened the hearts of all around her. And in that enduring impact, the lives uplifted, the community strengthened, and the love shared. Elena understood the deepest truth of her journey, that a life lived with faith. Spring brought with it the gentle promise of renewal, with buds forming on trees and the river flowing freely once again. Yet life often interweaves hope with trials, and for Elena, this season tested both her spirit and her resilience. One afternoon, a fire broke out in the neighboring building near her tailoring shop. Flames licked the sky, smoke billowed into the streets, and panic spread among the townsfolk. Elena's heart pounded as she watched the fire consume property and possessions, including some of her carefully stored fabrics and supplies. Without hesitation, she sprang into action. With Daniel by her side, she helped evacuate young women and neighbors from the immediate danger. Daniel's calm presence, steady hands, and unwavering support became a lifeline in the chaos, helping Elena maintain clarity amid fear. Together, they coordinated efforts to contain the damage as best as possible and to ensure that no one was harmed. Though their efforts could not prevent the loss of material possessions, the people and young women she mentored remained safe, a reassurance that mattered most to Elena. After the fire subsided, the work of rebuilding began. Elena assessed the damage with a heavy heart, but without despair. She realized that while physical materials could be replaced, the spirit and purpose that had guided her through hardship could not. With determination, she started organizing the shop and home repairs, reaching out to neighbors for assistance and gathering donations from those willing to help. Her resilience, honed through years of adversity, became a guiding light for others, demonstrating the strength found in perseverance, faith, and communal support. Daniel's support was unwavering throughout the process. He helped secure supplies, coordinated logistics, and offered encouragement when fatigue or doubt threatened to overwhelm Elena. Their shared experience during this disaster deepened their bond, not through grand gestures, but through mutual trust, collaboration, and quiet understanding. Elena saw in Daniel not just a companion, but a partner. Someone whose presence brought stability and hope in the face of trials. Through the weeks of rebuilding, Elena also reinforced her mentorship with Clara and the young women. The fire had disrupted their routines and destroyed some of their work, but Elena encouraged them to see this challenge as another lesson in resilience and perseverance. Together, they repaired, cleaned, and reorganized, turning setbacks into opportunities to strengthen skills, unity, and faith. By the time spring fully arrived, the shop and home were restored, perhaps even stronger than before. Elena reflected on the journey from destruction to restoration, realizing that adversity often revealed the depth of inner strength and the power of community. The disaster, though devastating, had become a testament to endurance, collaboration, and unwavering faith. A lesson not only for Elena, but for everyone whose lives she touched. And as she stood outside her repaired shop with Daniel at her side, she felt a quiet certainty that life's trials, no matter how fierce, could never extinguish hope, love, or the enduring promise of a purpose-driven life. With the fire behind them and spring fully blossoming, Elena's shop became more than a place of work. It transformed into a sanctuary of hope, learning, and resilience. What had once been a modest tailoring space now buzzed with life, filled with young women eager to learn, grow, and find purpose. The walls, once plain and utilitarian, were adorned with colorful fabrics, completed projects, and hand-lettered quotes of faith and encouragement. Each corner radiated warmth, reflecting Elena's nurturing spirit and her unwavering belief that even the smallest acts could create lasting change. Clara, now a confident young woman, played an active role in the shop. She guided newer apprentices, assisted with more complex sewing tasks, and helped instill the values of patience, perseverance, and faith that Elena had so carefully imparted. Under Elena's mentorship, the young women learned more than stitching and tailoring. They absorbed lessons in resilience, kindness, and the importance of service. They began to understand that their talents, though humble, could be used to support their families, assist neighbors, and contribute meaningfully to the community. Daniel remained a quiet, steady presence, offering help when needed and observing the impact Elena had on those around her. Though his assistance was practical, helping with deliveries, repairs, or logistics, it also carried a deeper significance. His respect for Elena's work, coupled with his encouragement, reinforced the bond that had slowly formed between them, a bond rooted in shared values, trust, and mutual admiration. In his presence, Elena felt supported without pressure, loved without expectation, and inspired to continue her work with renewed purpose. The sanctuary that the shop had become extended beyond mere skill building. It was a haven for reflection, prayer, and emotional support. Young women who had once felt lost or alone found guidance and a sense of belonging. Stories of past hardships, shared quietly over tea or while threading needles, became lessons in resilience and faith. Elena listened, advised, and encouraged, creating an environment where mistakes were seen as opportunities for growth and every small success was celebrated. Through this growing community, Elena discovered a profound truth. The life she had painstakingly rebuilt was not solely for her own benefit. Her purpose, her faith, and her skills were instruments to uplift others, to plant seeds of hope that would flourish long after her direct influence faded. Each day in the shop reinforced the interconnectedness of life, the importance of mentorship, and the enduring power of kindness. And as the sun set over the cobblestone streets, casting golden light through the shop windows, Elena felt a quiet contentment. She had endured loss, heartbreak, and trials that could have broken her spirit, yet she had emerged stronger, more compassionate, and deeply connected to the community around her. The sanctuary she had created was not just a place for sewing or learning. It was a testament to resilience, faith, and the transformative power of love, both given and received. As the sanctuary of her shop thrived, Elena's heart, long tempered by loss and cautious hope, began to open in a new way. Daniel, whose quiet support had been steadfast through trials and service, gradually became more than a companion or friend. Their shared values, mutual respect, and countless moments of collaboration had built a bond deeper than either had expected. It was subtle at first, a lingering glance, a shared laugh over minor mishaps, a gentle touch when carrying supplies, but the connection grew steadily, like sunlight filtering through morning mist, soft yet undeniable. Elena found herself looking forward to Daniel's presence in a way that was both comforting and exhilarating. Walks by the river, once a time of solitary reflection, became moments of conversation and shared stories. They spoke of dreams, of faith, and of the hope they held for the future. Daniel admired Elena's unwavering dedication to her shop, her mentorship, and her community, recognizing in her not just strength, but an extraordinary compassion that touched every life she encountered. In turn, Elena appreciated Daniel's patience, his insight, and the way he quietly encouraged her to remain true to herself and her values. The budding romance was gentle, built on trust and understanding rather than urgency. Daniel did not rush, and Elena did not feel pressured. Instead, they allowed their relationship to grow naturally, rooted in shared experiences and mutual admiration. Each small gesture, a kind word, a thoughtful action, a shared moment of silence, served to deepen their emotional connection. The young women in Elena's shop noticed the subtle joy that Daniel brought to her life, seeing in his presence a complement to her nurturing spirit. One spring evening, as the sun dipped low over the town, Daniel invited Elena to walk through the fields beyond the river. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers, the soft rustle of leaves, and the distant hum of evening life in the town. There, in that quiet, natural sanctuary, he spoke with gentle sincerity, expressing his admiration, respect, and love. He acknowledged the strength and grace she had shown through years of trials and heartbreak, and he shared his desire to walk beside her, not as a savior or a fleeting presence, but as a partner in life's journey. Elena, her heart full and eyes glistening with tears of joy, accepted the sincerity of his love. It was not a love born of passion alone, but of shared purpose, mutual respect, and the deep understanding that faith, hope, and compassion were the foundation of any enduring relationship. In Daniel, Elena found not just companionship, but a partner whose heart mirrored her own, ready to build a future grounded in love, service, and shared values. As they walked hand in hand through the fading light, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the loss, the heartbreak, the years of service and growth, and the quiet nurturing of faith. Each step had prepared her for this moment, and now, with Daniel beside her, she felt the profound joy of a heart healed, a life purposeful, and a love true and lasting. Section 13. Community impact and legacy. Years passed, and the sanctuary that Elena had nurtured with patience, dedication, and love continued to flourish. The small tailoring shop, once merely a means to earn a living, had become a vibrant hub of learning, guidance, and hope. Young women, once uncertain of their futures, now stepped confidently into the world with skills, knowledge, and the courage instilled in them by Elena's mentorship. The community recognized her not only as a skilled craftswoman, but as a beacon of kindness, resilience, and unwavering faith. Clara, once a timid and grieving girl, had grown into a confident young woman, capable of teaching others and contributing meaningfully to the town. Elena watched with quiet pride as Clara mentored newcomers, instilling the same principles of patience, compassion, and faith that had guided her own life. This passing of wisdom symbolized the profound ripple effect Elena had created, one that extended far beyond her personal sphere and into the hearts and futures of countless young women. Daniel remained a steady partner, his love and support continuing to complement Elena's efforts. Together they shared responsibilities, celebrated successes, and nurtured one another through challenges. Their partnership embodied the very principles they had both cherished: trust, mutual respect, patience, and faith. The love that had grown slowly and deliberately became a foundation, not only for their own happiness but for the flourishing of the community they served. Elena often reflected on her journey, from the tender warmth of her parents, guidance to the heartbreak and loneliness that had tested her spirit, and finally, to the deep fulfillment of love and service. She understood that every challenge, every loss, and every moment of struggle had shaped her into a woman capable of extraordinary compassion and purpose. Her life was no longer defined by what she had endured, but by what she had given, the lives she had touched, and the hope she had cultivated: compassion. And perseverance leaves a legacy far greater than any material wealth, one that resonates long after the individual has walked their path.